How's it? How's it? Otherwise You Well? Welcome to another episode of Otherwise You Well. I have one of the most phenomenal human beings and ADHD experts in the world who understands neurodivergence very well. She's an old friend of mine. We've known each other since we were, I think, teenagers.
Yeah, very
Now
young.
we're in our 40s, and well, I am. I don't know where. I don't know. We're the same age. Anyway, we'll find out.
Hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this conversation with Karla Pretorius. Hey,
Thank you, Nina.
Karla.
I'm so happy to be here. And yes, we've been friends since I think we were about 14 or 12, and now we're 40-ish.
That's quite insane. It's actually quite insane. I mean, if you think about the party days where I had. Do you remember my mohawk when I had patterns shaved in the side of my head? That was
Pretty cool.
yeah. And you were just like I discovered later that you were a tennis champion, and that's how you landed up studying in America. And like then next thing you've done so many things and you've accomplished so much, and now you wrote this incredible thing on how to work with kids with autism and teach them, and you're working on ADHD, and now you've just studied Portuguese. Like, wow.
I think it's typical of ADHDers to do that many things, and we're always trying to kind of see if we can finish tasks and accomplish things, and we get bored really easily. So that's also another thing. I've got ADHD, and that's why I think I can't do all of these things.
Absolutely. So the main reason that I'm having this chat with Karla, we've been trying to align our schedules for a while, but it is to discuss ADHD. What is it? How do you know you need to? I just said to somebody, I was on the phone just before this call, and I said to someone, "Oh, you've got ADHD." And they're like, "I do not." And I said, "You absolutely do." And they said, "You are not in a position to be diagnosing people just because you know a little bit more about yourself." And I was like, "Oh, that is fair. I will absolutely take that on." But it's really difficult to not identify ADHD markers in other people now that I'm so aware and familiar with it myself. So what are ADHD markers? How do you start going, oh, okay, maybe this is something I need to address in myself? What are the first markers of ADHD?
It's a difficult question to answer just like that, because it depends on your age. It depends on if you're a woman, a man, a child, it depends on what you're struggling with. But I can give you a general overview of ADHD, and then I can also kind of disclose as if it's a secret. I can also share some of the more nuanced characteristics that we're not always aware of, which I think is pretty interesting for the viewers, possibly. So first of all, you get, just to give a bit of background, I'm a therapist. I am also not diagnosing anyone with ADHD as I'm doing this talk. You have to go to a therapist to go get a diagnosis, or an assessment rather, and then you can go from there. But to help people, I think is very interesting to just share some of this knowledge. So you get 3 types of ADHD. You get your inattentive type, you get your hyperactive type, and then you get the comorbid. So you get the combined type. Oh, sorry, not comorbid, combined type. So you get the type where you're inattentive and you're hyperactive. Now, the hyperactivity can be in your mind, and that's a lot of times what we see with the later diagnosed individuals, where you might not be bouncing off the walls as a kid, but you're hyperactively thinking about, like, ruminating about the same topics over and over. You might be overanalyzing everything you said. I'm very interested in this because this is obviously a personal project for me. This is what I was diagnosed with, is that hyperactivity in your mind. And it's also where a lot of women, and I know I'm generalizing here, but a lot of women are diagnosed only later because they don't have those hyperactivity or hyperactive symptoms. So they might not be like on the roof of the restaurant, but they are sitting there feeling really anxious about how to order the meal without sounding too much, too sensitive. Like, what do I choose? How many choices are there on the menu? Those simple things that make us feel like there's something wrong with us. That could be ADHD inattentive type or combined type. I don't know if that's answering your question.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, you know what the question is? You said go to your therapist. Now, are all therapists equipped to make ADHD diagnoses?
No. Yeah, and I think up until that question, I think we also need to talk about like the things that we're struggling with, right? So, first of all, to answer your question, no, not all therapists are trained in assessing if you have a neurodivergent condition, which includes autism, ADHD, ADHD, PDA, emotional
what is
dysregulation.
PDA?
It's pathological demand avoidance, and a more neuroaffirming way of saying that is a persistent drive for autonomy. And there's about a 70% overlap of ADHDers and autistic people that have PDA. So that's when you feel like you hate it when people tell you what to do. You feel like they're pushing you in a corner. You feel like you're always expected of doing certain things, saying certain things, and people are trying to get something out of you. The root is anxiety, and you also within PDA you also get an internalizing type, externalizing type, and a combined type.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a condition in the DSM, which is the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual, but it is definitely being recognized more, especially in the UK and other countries. America's almost there as a comorbid condition or characteristic of ADHDers and autistic people. So just to go back, because I think I was a bit scattered in my answer here. But
tell me you have ADHD without telling me you have ADHD.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what was the question again? But no, but to answer your question about like how to spot those signs and the more subtle signs, if you're struggling with things that you feel like other people aren't struggling with. So if you're looking around your friendship circle, sometimes not always your friendship circle because we tend to flock together. But if you look at other people at your work environment or just socially, and you think, why are they not struggling to this much with anxiety? Or why are they seem like they have it all together and nobody is questioning what they said or what they did. And for them, it seems so easy to go and transition into different environments. Or why can they just finish a project? Why isn't it this big mountain? And why can they start a task like cooking? And it's just like they open a fridge and they're like, oh, well, I'll just cook something today. And they can just go in and cook something. And it's not a massive mission. Everything.
Cooking is so terrifying for me. It totally freezes me. And then I often just land up not eating.
Exactly. And then we feel shame, right? So it's that whole cycle of like, why can't we just do the normal things? Why can't we just go in and do the laundry and it's not a mission? And why can't we just go and cook something quickly? Why does everything feels to us like we're struggling with our planning, prioritizing, and organizing, which in essence is our executive dysfunction that we struggle with as ADHDers, which is all part of our frontal lobe functioning. So that is really, if you look at it from a neurobiological point of view, that's what we struggle with, that, and obviously with our inhibition control and those things.
Let's talk about inhibition control.
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about inhibition control.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like you were talking about how we met, and a lot of times, like 2 to 3 times more often, ADHDers will have addictive personalities, which we're seen as having addictive personalities, which it really just is that we are seeking dopamine. So we have inhibition everything is a dysregulation in ADHD. So we have a dysregulation with dopamine. So our dopamine gets distributed, dysregulated throughout our bodies or throughout our brains, actually. So when we want to gain something, we want it really quickly. And how do we gain something really quickly? Like, we don't want to work for it for too long. So how do we get it? Is through, a lot of times, alcohol, nicotine, drugs, because it's quick. It's like a very hedonistic way of getting something that gives us that dopamine hit. And when we're young, we see those things as quick fixes. So if you think about inhibition control, what it is really is that we struggle with to say, okay, I need to pause. I need to look at what is the end goal. I need some joy in my life. How do I get joy in my life without going to alcohol or drugs or, whatever else is maybe a vice for you, like eating badly or eating too much or eating
toxic
too little.
relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. Could be any of these, all of these.
When I'm feeling dysregulated, or when I feel that I'm like, need to eat absolutely every single sweet or like, have my body weight in Easter eggs, or, when I'm craving nicotine. I struggled with cigarettes for so long. I'd quit for like a year and then, go on, I'd be in a down space because obviously I don't drink anymore, or I know that when I'm looking for something, I would often like look for an argument with someone. And I'd get the same sort of satisfaction from an argument, or from talking to a toxic ex, because I know that I'm going to get some sort of reaction. Even if it's a negative behavior, I'm going to receive some dopamine. I didn't know that that's what it was. And now when I see those things happening, oh, I'm craving this, or I'm craving that, I go, let me look at my day. How did I start my day? Did I not get enough dopamine this morning? So I didn't go on my stupid mental health walk. I didn't go to the gym and lift heavy things. I didn't get some sunshine, or I didn't sleep enough, or, I didn't eat something that, was fulfilling, or maybe I'm hungry, or maybe I'm thirsty. Why don't I have dopamine in my body? And because we've developed these patterns of, I know if I do this, I'm going to feel better. Even if it's a bad thing, it'll make me feel better. You aren't like cognitively going or consciously going, okay, cool, I want to pick a fight so that I feel better. You land up just picking a fight with someone because this is the habit that you formed, because it generally does make you feel better. So now when I act like that, I'm much more aware of the process, and I'm much more aware of the regulation in my body. And I wonder if there are, this is kind of like some of the ADHD teaching, like how to recognize when you're dysregulated. What would you suggest to people that have now been diagnosed, or maybe not diagnosed, they suspect that they're ADHD? How would you recommend they understand themselves? How do you monitor the self-awareness? What's a good exercise?
There are so many, but it's really good what you said now is just to start making yourself more aware of what is actually going on. My entire PhD topic is to distract ADHD. So I'm specifically focusing on women, inattentive and combined type. To once we feel overwhelmed, how do we distract ourselves before we react? And how I'm doing it, this is very specific, is by inducing a transcendent emotion, which is, in my case, what I'm using as karma mutta. So karma mutta is a transcendent emotion where, very simply put, it's like watching watching like a video of puppies playing with each other, and you have that moment of like, oh, cute. Now, what inattentiveness does to us is we believe, and in ADHDers, we believe it's a bad thing, because we're like, oh, but I can't sustain my attention to have a conversation that's like an hour long, so I have to constantly like redirect myself to the conversation. Whereas I believe it's not a bad thing. We're able to follow so many different tracks. Like I'm thinking about the conversation we had earlier, and I'm thinking about what I can say later. And it's actually a strength, but we need to use it to our advantage, right? So the first thing that I would say is, that they can use their strength, their symptoms or characteristics to their advantage. So you need to distract yourself. When you're feeling overwhelmed, you need to get away from that environment before you react. I think that's very important because we react with our inhibition control in an overly emotional way, and when we're feeling overwhelmed. So we need to first regulate, and then to know what works best when you regulate. That's where self-awareness really comes into play as well. So for me, it might be that I need to go and play with my dog because he's the only thing that calms me. I don't like hugs when I'm feeling overwhelmed. If my partner touches me, I'm like, don't touch me. But my dog can touch me, So we need to figure out like what is okay for you in those different scenarios. So I would definitely do like a self-awareness activity where you go, okay, when I'm feeling really irritated, what do I do that calms me? And you could even take this is part of my PhD project. How do you know somebody is doing their PhD, Nina?
I don't know. Tell me.
They talk about it.
That's so great. That's so great. I'm doing my PhD. Right.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So my PhD. Anyways, but with the PhD is that I take my HRV, so my heart rate variability, and then I will do something, and then I take my HRV measurement again to see if this thing that I've done is actually increasing, which is a good thing, my HRV. So you can do it with your heart rate. You can do your HRV. Your HRV is just the flexibility in your heart rate, basically.
So everyone's got these smartwatches. They walk around with these smartwatches. They're like, okay, I'm stressed right now. Cool. Let me go do something, change my environment, change my body temperature, go walk on grass, darling, like walking on grass, if that's what does it for you. And then check your heart rate again. So what about the people that aren't even aware of the fact that their heart rate is high? Like, how do you, at what point do you go, maybe I need to have this addressed? I'm going to ask that question. Then I want to ask another question. The other question is, okay, so you're now you've been diagnosed and you've been medicated. Does that solve all the problems?
And it's just, okay, two very different questions. Yes. So the first question, and I need to remember the second question, so if I don't, just remind me. But the first question is, how do we know? So it's usually it's a symptom that we see. So we'll see there's issues in our relationship, if we have a relationship, or with our friendships, and we won't understand why. So we'll be like, but that's not my intention. So there's an incongruence a lot of times, or a divergence in the way that we're trying to say what we want to say, and the person is taking it the wrong way. And I think you and I, if I go back into our personal lives, both have felt like this, very much misunderstood. People have not really seen us for who we are.
I think we both made careers out of that. You were like, okay, let me get a PhD in being understood. And I was like, let me make a career out of having a microphone where no one else can reply so that I'm understood.
Yeah, exactly. But because we felt like people were talking over us, if I can talk for both of us now. But, I've known you for so long that I know that people have not really seen who you are, and people haven't really seen who I am. So I felt like, and maybe it was part of the imposter syndrome, but I had to get all these credibility or credible, whatever, degrees or whatever. It doesn't make you credible, by the way, but I had to get more stuff to show that I know what I'm talking about. And that was my process. And each person is going to have their process. But what I'm trying to say with this is that there's a moment where we all realize, wait a minute, people aren't really getting us. And that moment, I think we need to look back and say, okay, what am I trying to say? And what is this person hearing me say? So I think that's a good exercise to do with somebody that you trust, and we don't trust easily. So try and find somebody that you trust, like 80%, where you can say, look, we just had an argument like last week. I was trying to say this. So a very good exercise could be, I feel emotion because situation. And then they can say that to the person and then ask them. And I know this is very hard for us to do, but to ask them, what did you hear? What did you think I said? I started doing this with my partner, and it was a really nice activity. In the beginning, it was very hard, but I would write down, because I'm not very good in the moment with a person, because when I'm overwhelmed, I feel attacked. So I would write it down to him and send it to him, and then he would send it to me back. And I started seeing, okay, so there's definitely some things that I'm saying differently to what I'm actually trying to say. And I think that's a good activity. So that's the first question, right?
Okay, I'm going to interrupt the next question because I have a follow-up question for this. Okay, so I really struggled with aggression. So somebody would misunderstand me, I would snap, or so I'd be very irritable and I would get violent. And I see maybe like the aggression, is the aggression more prevalent in men or also in women, like as an ADHD trait?
I mean, I would need to look at the statistics of what type of aggression are you talking about. So are you talking about just like a verbal response that seems quite aggressive, or are you actually talking about like physical aggression?
So I would be unable to control myself when I'm triggered, like completely unable to control myself, whether it's verbal, whether it's physical, whether it's screaming, whether it's like, even like self-harm, I really could not control myself. And since I've been on medication, I am able to take a pause. People would be like, can you just think before you say something? Can you just think before you do something? And I was like, what do you mean think before? Like until I was on medication, I didn't realize the rest of the world were able to think before they spoke, like literally able to. I was never able to. So the medication gave me this opportunity to just be able to take a pause before any sort of reaction, and also a pause in making bad decisions in general, So I just kind of, I don't know whether it slows me down or it gives me, I don't know how it works, but all I know is I'm less aggressive.
I think, talking about overwhelm in general, it comes out in different ways. Sometimes it could be like just an overwhelmed response. So that could be like a verbal aggressive response, or a physical aggressive response, or somewhere where we go and say, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to go and drink, and this person, I'm not going to bother with them anymore. Whatever it is, that overwhelm is that's where we are unable to control our senses. So yes, it is completely out of our control, and we have to put in pit stops before it reaches that ideally. When you reach that stage, though, because I can't say that it's never going to happen, again, even on medication, but if we reach that stage, there needs to be kind of like an SOS thing that we can do. So whether it is like you pack like a little bag where you have some really nice stuff in there that makes you feel safe and calm, and affirmations and whatever it is, that could be like your SOS bag that you keep under your bed. But I would say that with that is that there's a build-up that we struggle to get without medication, because it feels to us like we're going from 0 to 100. And there are signs. So with the self-awareness part, like if you can just pick up on, I'm really irritated now. Okay, let's backtrack. Exactly what you did. Let's look at my day. And now I need to put in, because so if you look at the brain state theory, so the conscious brain state theory, when we're overwhelmed, we can't learn. When we're feeling like we're in survival mode, so when our brain stem is active and not our prefrontal cortex or our emotional brain, our limbic system, we won't be able to put in strategies. So when you're in that state, survival mode, just make yourself feel safe. Then we're going to slowly move back, and we have to go through each brain state slowly, right? So then you go into limbic state, where you just need some support from another person or a dog or something that gives you that emotional connection where you're just feeling loved. then you can go into executive state where you're like, okay, now I can put strategies in place when this happens again. So I think that's important to know, that we can't skip a state. So we need to kind of go back and feel safe, feel loved, and then we can work on strategies. And then I think with medication, what it does, to answer that question, it's not a miracle drug where it's like a one size fits all and it's completely just going to not make us feel like we've got ADHD. I still have ADHD. I'm on medication too, but I can control my urges a lot more now. So I know that I want to tell you something now, but it's not part of this discussion, but I don't have to do it.
Right.
So it makes it easier.
It was very difficult for me when I was interviewing people on live television. My producers would call me in all the time and say, you are constantly interrupting guests and then personalizing situations. Oh, that also happened to me. And then share a whole story about myself. They're like, you're supposed to be interviewing the guests and getting information about them. And I was like, well, this is me sharing, that we can find a place together. Like, oh, cool. I totally understand what you're saying. And in this instance, that happened to me. It's like a relativity thing. And it became like a contentious issue with the producers, but what actually happened is it was quite entertaining for viewers, because they would then get two stories, It was very embarrassing for me to sort of watch afterwards, because I could see myself not having control over that reaction.
Yeah, I think, but it's also a pretty normal thing, as an ADHDer, we show empathy by sharing a story. It also shows that we understand the actual story. So it's like story swapping versus one-upping. That's a very different thing. Like if you say something and I'm like, yeah, but I did this, and that's different to, oh, that makes me think of this.
Right.
Because when we're relating it, it makes me, what I'm trying, my intention, this is a very good example, because it could, like what we spoke about earlier, right? When we said that my intention is to show you that I care, I get it, I really understand, and I'm really listening, which is hard for us to do on prolonged periods, right? So I'm showing you, Nina, that I'm listening to a story, I'm relating it to a story that has happened to me, I'm making it personal because I care, versus, like I'm just saying something to make it about me. We don't want things to be about us.
Yes.
We actually just want the connection.
That was always the issue. I was like, I'm not trying to make this about me. I'd rather not talk about myself. I'm actually trying to get more out of this person. And I didn't have the words to articulate that feeling at that time, I want to, is there a like, short of going online and finding a quiz, is there a way that you can go, okay, these are basic traits of ADHD because I know it presents differently in women, and because there's all this new data on how it presents in women. The textbook that has just been written, I am textbook of that thing, right? But how do what direction do I send somebody in that I think might have ADHD, and I say, short of like now making your entire Instagram algorithm an ADHD feed with memes, there's so little South African information on ADHD. So where do I send someone?
It depends on the person. So, I mean, because the person might actually have ADHD, right? So I think it's important to know what works for you might not work for them. So a therapist might even not work for them. A lot of people don't want to see therapists, and that's totally fine. Some people love podcasts. So there are some amazing podcasts out there. I can maybe send you a list of things that you can add as a description that could help. Some people love short form videos like TikTok videos, and then following actually some ADHDers could help with that. We love carousel posts because it's quick and it's easy digestible. So that could help as well with some really good sources. Other people love books. ADHD 2.0 by Hallowell. Ed Hallowell is a really good book, but it's not written in an ADHD friendly way. So,
Right.
there's no pictures.
We need pictures. We need information to have dopamine released for us. We need
Colorful.
the dopamine. So a carousel post is informative and it releases dopamine. Oh, look, there's something else to look forward to. There's something else to look forward to, you know?
Yeah, when it's going to end. Oh, it's going to end. No, it's not going to end it. Yeah, like that novelty.
Novelty. Novelty is a big theme in ADHD. Why are we constantly, well, for me, in new relationships or in relationships where I'm misunderstood so that I constantly have to explain myself, or, what's novelty about in ADHD?
So again, it's like that dopamine. It's like something new, something shiny, something we like for a little bit. And then as soon as it becomes routine or predictable, we're like, it's boring. There's two parts to that, right? There's a part of we need something new and fresh. And then there's a part of we don't trust easily because people have burnt us our whole lives. People have misunderstood us. So the two things there, I would focus on both. I would focus on bringing in novelty into my life on a consistent basis, but I would also focus on my ability to start trusting people that I've vetted. So we are really good in gathering information, but we usually focus on the negative. It's a bit of a negative bias that all people have, but us, we're zoning in on it. So we're like, well, that one person burnt me that one time, so I'm never going to trust again. So it leans towards a very rigid type of thinking. So I would challenge that as a therapist. I would with my clients too. And I would say, okay, look, let's gather more information and see if we can't trust this person 80% of the time. We don't need to trust people either 0 or 100. So that's the first part, is to start trusting a little bit more, opening up a little bit more, feeling safer, because we hop because we're scared of getting hurt again and again. I was also a relationship hopper, and it was fun because it's new and we're going into like, what is it? Not paradise stage. What's the honeymoon stage?
Yeah, paradise. I could do with a paradise stage at this time. Yeah.
So honeymoon stage for a little bit. And then, after a while, we're like, okay, well, this person is probably, it's a bit more complicated even, because there's also that feeling that we get, like, that person is not going to see me as exciting as they saw me in the beginning. I'm a creature of habit. I want to feel safe. I want to feel secure. So we also build this kind of expectation up in our mind when we're like, okay, but they want us to be entertaining and funny all the time, or smart or exciting. We need to, and it's exhausting. But we kind of build that up a lot of times in our minds too. So yeah, it's a complicated question.
I think what I'd like to do in our next conversation, because I feel, it's such a very basic introduction to what we'd like to do, is maybe mimic a first session with you, as a therapist. Hi, I think I've got ADHD. Let's start from the beginning, and how you would ask me questions and things like that. I think that might be helpful for a beginner's guide. And then, maybe go into more detail of PDA or histrionic personality disorder. The things that when you further down the ADHD wormhole, that you're like, because I just keep learning more and more layers of this thing. And, I feel like what's been happening in society is people are using their mental health as like social weapons. Like, well, I've got ADHD, and then it sort of exempts them from taking responsibility or accountability. And I think we need to, well, what I have been doing, and I think I'm enjoying my approach, is going, okay, cool. This is my mental health affliction or diagnosis or situation, and I'm aware of it, and it is my responsibility to control and how it affects people in society. But not that takes a lot of work. It is an all-consuming a full-time job managing my mental health, and not everybody's up for that challenge. So it's like, and these people are walking around just hurting people, and I'm like, you're just causing havoc in society. So, but you can't force anybody to want to change. We're just going to offer you some information, and maybe if your loved one is treating you in a way that makes you feel that is inconsistent or whatever, if you're on the receiving end of ADHD and you don't know how to articulate that, I'd like this to be a place where we can give people that kind of information.
Well, I think it would be great to also get questions from people and say, okay, let's answer some of these questions, because they're, like you said, the partner of the ADHDer, or the friend or the parent or the,
colleague,
or the child. Yeah, colleague, exactly. All of these individuals, they get so empowered when they know, okay, this is what the action actually meant. And yes, definitely taking accountability as the ADHDer. We had to do it. Both of us had to do it, where we're like, okay, well, I need to actually step it up. I can't just blame my personality, because I would say I'm just kind of like that. I'm such an honest person. That's the one thing I said all the time. I'm like, I'm just straight up honest.
Yeah.
And one of my friends actually said, yeah, but you don't need to be rude. I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute.
Right.
Like, I need to step back.
I would get that a lot. Like, it's the way that you're saying things. And I'm like, what do you mean it's the way that I'm saying things? I'm just telling you the exact situation. I'm telling you exactly what it is. And I'd offend a lot of people all the time. Okay, so here's the offering. Like, if you have any questions for Karla about ADHD, whether you think you might have it, or a friend or a family member or a colleague, and you want to know more, please ask us questions. I think that you'd be such a fantastic repeat guest on this space, just because it's something that I'm particularly obsessed with, ADHD, and also because it's so very misunderstood. I've had so many misdiagnoses over the years, and as a result, like, quite a lot of damage done to my brain by not having the actual commitment or the actual correct medication or the correct whatever it is. So if you have questions, please send them forward. We'd love to know what you need to know.
Yeah, perfect. Because the misdiagnoses thing is such a big topic. And I get individuals that come to my therapy session so often with the diagnosis of BPD or bipolar or something like that. And it's actually it's something else.
So what other platforms do you have and information that people can seek out if they want to do a deep dive on your work? Where can we find you?
So I have a website with quite a lot of information on. It's my name and surname, Karla Pretorius with a K, .com. And then I am on social media. I didn't think I would ever say this, but I'm on Instagram and TikTok and on LinkedIn. And on most of those, except LinkedIn, I'm just with my name. I'm therapy.neurodivergent, but they can always just message me or message me through you, and we can continue this conversation, because I would love to, just help people become more aware of what ADHD is, how it's presented in different types of people, the different profiles, and what we actually mean with what we're saying, because I think there's a massive incongruence there.
Absolutely. So we're going to find the words that mean the things that we say or that we want to say. And reach out to us. Karla, thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope that we've sparked some thoughts in people, and that they are going to grow and learn and find something about themselves that they can do something with.
Thank you for having me, Nina.
Bye.